All right. Well, today I have got Jermaine Morgan with me on the podcast. Welcome, Jermaine.
Thanks for having me, man.
Hey, yeah, no problem, man. And if I know probably a lot of my listeners will know who you are, and then probably some of my listeners won't know who you are. So if you don't know who Jermaine is, you need to know who he is. I've been following him for a number of years now on his YouTube channel. He's got, gosh, what, like 700 plus videos on there now and like a
Wow.
billion subscribers.
I'll
Yeah.
receive that.
Okay. And he's also got his website, jermainemorgan.net, not
Hmm.
.com. And so definitely check that out because you got all kinds of instructional stuff on the website, a lot of cool stuff. You've accomplished a lot. You look like you're still a young guy, but it looks like you've accomplished a lot so far. So I'd really love to hear your story. This is probably a big questions, I'll probably have to chop it up into some smaller ones. So, because I
Okay.
would really love to hear how you got started in bass playing and how you got to where you are now. But let's just start off with, hey, how'd you kind of first get started in the bass? What attracted you to it, and how'd you get going from it to begin with? And roughly around what age were you when you did that?
I think I come from a musical family first and foremost. My mom, believe it or not, played the bass.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my mom played the bass. My brother, he played pretty much everything. I got an older brother, Ken. He plays everything like I do, and I think I'm the one that just took it and made a career out of it.
Hmm.
But he's good too. But anyway, so I was always inspired by my mom watching my brother play, and I learned a lot from watching my brother early on, and just hungry for music. The more it was a natural part of our home,
Hmm.
just we were musicians. My mom was led the choir. She directed and did all that type of stuff. So my brother and I, we were always surrounded by music. So it was kind of normal for us. We weren't professional musicians or anything like
Hmm.
that, but it's a normal thing around the house. And the more I pursued in music in college and that kind of stuff, and started getting surrounded by people like Nate Holloman, that's one of
Hmm.
my guys. Once I met him, he opened me up to all of the stuff that most people know me for today with the solo playing and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. So I blame Nate if you're watching. I blame Nate for that. So that's really how, in a nutshell, how I got into it, just in the family and just being surrounded by great musicians later on in life that inspired me to pursue more.
Yeah. Well, would you really like kind of you're always around it, but was there ever a time where you kind of said, "Oh, this is something I want to do this for, the rest of my life or really get serious about it." What was there ever like a kind of a switch point for you there or something that kind of really, I know you mentioned Nate, maybe that was it, but was there anything else that really any time frame where you could say, "Yeah, this is really I really noticed that this is something I really want to do."
You know what? It actually was. I think one of my best friends, Darius Fant, he's a drummer. He played in my band with me. But we had a mentor, and he's still a good friend of mine to this day, James Judah. And I was at the Itawamba Community College and playing with the gospel choir there. James was just like this guy. He would just take on us young musicians and just kind of like be a big brother, so to speak, to us. And James took us to a concert. It was a Fred Hammond concert. I'll never forget.
Oh, Fred Hammond, yeah.
Yeah, Fred Hammond concert. And this had to be 2002, somewhere around there. And he took my best friend and I to this concert. And it was at the Boutwell Auditorium in Birmingham, Alabama. And so Fred, that was closest to us there in Mississippi. So Fred was there. James took us to the concert, and it's like we were just mind blown. That's at that point, that was like one of the biggest concerts I had been to, minus like a Kirk Franklin concert early on. But we had close seats. They told us
Mm,
all to come up close to the stage because I guess it wasn't packed out. So we were able to come closer to the stage. And so we were just, our mind was blown. So at the end of the concert, to nail this story down, at the end of the concert, I pointed at that stage and I told me and my best friend, we were already playing together for years. I said, that's gonna be us one day. We had like Maurice Fitzgerald, he was playing the bass. And I was kind of new to bass. I don't think I
hmm.
answered that question, but I started playing bass around the age 15, like, playing around on it because I started out on guitar
Okay.
and drums and keyboard and all that stuff. But bass was like the last instrument I picked up. So anyway, I was just so blown away by Maurice Fitzgerald and him playing. He looked so cool doing it and
Hmm.
that kind of thing. And so I told him, I said, that's gonna be us one day. And so I would probably say that moment at that concert kind of sealed the deal on me wanting to really do this. And strangely enough, one of the first artists I traveled with, um, I was already working with different artists, but one of the first artists I traveled with, I don't know if you're familiar with Canton Jones.
Can't say that I am.
He's a Christian hip hop, like one of the
Okay.
pioneers there in Christian hip hop there. But
Okay.
anyway, I traveled with him for some time. But the first concert I did with Canton Jones was at the Boutwell Auditorium in Birmingham,
Mm,
Alabama. So that was kind of like full circle
yeah, that's
for me.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Fred's an awesome bass, but he wasn't playing at that show because I
No.
know he's an awesome bass player.
Yeah, Fred didn't play at that show. No.
Okay. So he mostly just sings when he plays live, but doesn't he do like a lot of the recording stuff himself?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. Well, there's so much gospel styles out there. I know there's hymns and spiritual songs and shout and bump music and congregational songs and gospel quartet and so many different things out there.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of my listeners are going to be like, hey, gospel's cool, but it's not something I know how to play.
Hmm.
What if someone was like interested in learning gospel, where would you say that they should really kind of start? What should they look at first?
That's a loaded question.
Because if I said, hey, just start off with some shout music, and they're like trying to run their fingers off, that would probably wouldn't be a good place
Yeah,
to
yeah,
to
that's
start.
not. Don't start with shout music unless
Yeah.
you're just trying to learn how to play fast. Don't start with shout
Hmm.
music. I would say it all ties in together. Traditional shout music kind of goes in that traditional vein of gospel music. So, um, like it's just a walking bass fast,
Hmm.
basically. It's just a different variation of walking bass fast. If you're, it all depends on what you're trying to get into when you're saying gospel, because as you
Hmm.
said, gospel is so
So broad.
vast. Yes,
Yeah.
very broad, and there's so many subgenres. Like
Yeah.
Canton Jones, for instance, that's gospel music, but it was like hip hop. So it
Hmm.
feels a lot like pop. It feels a lot like some stuff that you hear on the top 40, R&B radio, but it's Christian music,
Hmm.
gospel music. And so I would say a good place to start, kind of to work your way in modern, if you're getting into modern gospel, listening to people like the two that come to mind for me now are like a Todd Dulaney,
Hmm.
a Todd Galbert, Israel Houghton,
Oh yeah.
starting there, because even though their music is it's kind of complicated to a degree, it's to me it gives you enough um if you're transitioning over from Christian or CCM music,
Hmm.
it gives you a kind of a way to get in without feeling like you're overwhelmed with learning the music because it's so much stuff there.
Right.
I'm fortunate right now to be a worship pastor at a multicultural church, and so some of the we have a mixed congregation, and so a lot of their music I'm able to work in along with the Phil Wickmans and that kind of stuff. So we're able to blend a lot of the Ty Galbert. We haven't gotten into a lot of Ty Dulaney, even though he has some really incredible songs.
Oh yeah.
But you got Ty Galbert, Ty Dulaney, Israel Houghton, CC Winans. That's gospel, but it's kind of a mixture that gets you in the contemporary gospel, contemporary
Right.
worship world of things. So that'll be a good starting point. But if you want to go more traditional gospel, now you're looking to listen to people like Ricky Dillard, and depending on what album you're listening to for him, that could get a little intricate. Yeah,
Yeah.
you could start with a song like with Ricky Dillard, "So Amazing." That's a really simple song to kind of get into. Ricky has a very broad array of songs that you can kind of check out, that like if you just want to hone in on an artist and hear all the different variations of gospel, Ricky has a lot of stuff. You have him, you have of course Fred Hammond. um Kirk Franklin has always
Sure.
been more innovative, so his stuff has went away from the more traditional sound of gospel because he's always pushing the envelope. So
Hmm.
that is gospel music, but it's going to be so far advanced. It's probably not going to give you a real um, traditional scope, so to speak, of getting into gospel music and fully understanding it. So going with more of the traditional, like a Ricky Dillard or somebody like that, you have a really popular song that everybody sings by Hezekiah Walker, Every Praise.
Every praise. Yeah.
Everybody knows that
Yeah.
song. So that's a good gospel song. And so you have a lot of these gospel artists. I think they made a lot of crossover songs, and I'm meaning crossover in the sense of any audience can sing these songs.
Yeah.
Those are good songs to get started with in terms of introducing yourself to gospel. But if you're wanting to understand more of the gospel quartet and that type of thing, then you go back and look at old recordings like the Canton Spirituals.
Hmm.
That's a gospel quartet group. Lee Williams and the Spiritual QCs. That's gospel quartet.
Yeah.
Those
Dixie
are two.
Hummingbirds.
There you go. There you
Yeah.
go. So any of those. So it really matters where you want to. Charles Jenkins. That's
Mm.
another good one. He has this song. This Means War
Oh
was
yeah.
one of his really really popular songs. A lot of churches do that song.
I've done
And
that one actually too.
yeah,
Yeah.
and there was another one that he did actually. Canton Jones did a remix for the song "Our God Is Awesome."
Hmm.
And a little fun fact: I'm playing the guitar and bass on that Charles Jenkins
Oh
remix.
really?
yeah,
Oh wow.
awesome. So you'll see that video on YouTube. Was like a lot of different artists that were they put it together on that remix of that song. But anyway,
Oh, that's
awesome.
cool.
The original song, "Awesome" by Charles Jenkins, is another gospel kind of crossover song that I think was a really good, gospel, modern gospel song. So
Right.
hopefully they gave you enough background real quick.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, there's so much out there. Like you said, it's such a broad term to use. It's almost like saying rock music or pop music. It's just like it could be so much variety in there.
Yeah.
Um, but you've built an incredible platform as an educator. What really made you kind of start getting into teaching and doing what you're doing with all the training that you're doing? I mean, I'm assuming at some point you were playing a lot and then you realized you had a knack for teaching, or tell us just a little bit how you got into that.
That's funny. That was accidental.
Yeah.
I did not want to do this teaching thing at when I went to school. I went to the as mentioned earlier. I went to school for music as a music major on tuba, believe it or not.
Oh wow.
So I went to school. Started at ICC, Itawamba Community College. Then I transferred to the University of North Alabama. And it's like I was being asked by some people, "Are you going to go into education?" No, I do not want to teach at all. I don't have any desire to teach. All performance. That's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But what happened, with YouTube being what it is now, I I was posting content. Initially, YouTube was being used by me just as an outlet. I was playing a major gig down here for a church, big church down here, and doing my stuff around the city of Atlanta. But I didn't really have an outlet for my own creativity. So I started using YouTube as just somewhere to document and put stuff up. And I was putting a lot of content up, but I noticed I was just being a t-shirt or something and just throw a video of, "Hey guys, here's a lick I learned." And I noticed those videos started getting a lot of views. I'm
Yeah.
like, this is interesting. And so Bass Players United, they weren't as big as they are now, but I was connected with Adam Phillips with Bass Players United a long time ago. We did a lot of things over the years, but he reached out to me and asked me to do a lesson on the modes. Now, here's my confession. Even though I went to school and I learned theory and I did all this stuff, I sucked at theory. I sucked at music theory. But one of the reasons, and I struggled with sight reading and all that stuff when I was playing tuba, my ear worked against me. I could always memorize the music quicker than I could read it.
Hmm.
So my ears would get ahead of my eyes. So my sight reading sucked. So needless to say, when I was learning music theory in college, I passed the class, but I didn't really understand it because I could pass it on paper, but I didn't know how it applied to the music. So
Yeah.
all that being said, when I put that first lesson out on the modes, I said a few things wrong trying to explain it. I knew what I was talking about, but I explained it wrong, and they tore into me in the comments
Wow.
on YouTube. And I said, never again. I've never put up another teaching video. But as you could see, um, I put out more content since then. And like you said, I found that I related to people who struggled with theory like me. And my whole goal from that point on became to not make theory deep and spooky, because I knew how to play, but I just didn't know how to explain the rules well. So I had to figure out a way to make the rules, so to speak, be practical and make it make sense to the average person that's not sitting around reading a theory book. He just want to
Hmm.
play for his church. He just want to play this gig and get through this gig and play something cool. So I figured out how to merge the theory in a way that made sense to the average musician. And so
Yeah.
that everything is built off of that.
Yeah, and that's interesting. You mentioned how you were doing a training thing on modes and then realized you didn't really know it as well as you thought.
Yeah.
And I think for me, and I think for a lot of people who teach, I think actually teaching forces you as the teacher to get better. It's like you're teaching yourself
Yes.
in order to teach others.
Yeah.
And it really kind of helps to humble you and know where you're at
Mm,
realistically, and then work on your own weaknesses in order to be able to show them as strengths to others. So that's interesting that you mentioned that.
100%. I agree
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And, you mentioned also your ear and, uh, for you, your ear, like you're saying, was your strong point, and then you were struggling more on the reading and the theory. But a lot of people, myself included, actually struggle more with playing by ear. So, how do you help musicians in that regard who are kind of the reverse, where they're good at figuring stuff out on paper or reading on paper or learning theory, but actually playing by ear, especially in the moment? Is there a way that anything that you do that kind of addresses that?
Yes, and it's funny that you mentioned that, because that's something's coming up really soon that I'm about to start doing on YouTube, with specifically helping bass players to train their ear. I that
Hmm.
that the point that you just made is something that I discovered over my years of teaching. The average musician, um, they don't really know. They think they do, and
Hmm.
sometimes that's what gets in the way. But they don't really know how to do detailed listening.
Hmm.
A lot of people don't know how to listen to songs. And so I'll give an example. Um, One of the churches that I played for, the really large church that I played for, when I got the gig, I was learning the music, and I'd never been in an intense situation like this where they sent music out every week and it was difficult songs. And you had to learn the songs like, and those guys that I was playing with, like these are A-list musicians,
Hmm.
and I was struggling to keep up. But I was learning the songs. But I remember the music director would tell me, "Hey, you missed this part. You missed that part. You missed that part." I'm like, "Huh? No, I don't think." I'm like, I think this is it. This is pretty. And he would always get me. He's like, "Okay, that's cool. Let's listen to the record." And sure enough, he would play the record, and it's like several parts I was missing, like detailed parts in the song. I would be playing over them. My brother and I was talking about this, about another musician, and the idea is sometimes, because once we become like you're saying, you don't really know who you are when you're teaching.
Hmm.
uh, Sometimes as musicians, once we get to a certain level, we assume, and most musicians, when they're listening to music, they assume they assume that this is what it's doing. They assume that this is where it's going. Okay, this song feels like that song, which is good because you need to pull from that to make the
Hmm.
learning process a little quicker. But sometimes in our assumption, we skim past the details that make the song the song.
Hmm.
So oftentimes we should take away the assumptions when we're listening to music and just listen to the music for what it is. I found in some of my students, they start playing first before fully listening to the song. I was like, okay, it's only doing this. And so when you do that, you diminish what you could be learning from each song in terms
Hmm.
of the detailed listening. So you start playing, you're missing critical or crucial parts in the song. Okay, they're going to the four. Okay, they're going to the six. Okay, that's cool. They're going, okay, this is gonna ride out on vamp. They're gonna be on the six the whole time. You're missing critical parts. One of the things I started doing, because I had a problem with forgetting songs, I would spend a lot of time with my ear learning songs, memorizing songs. And then when Sunday comes, I guess my brain would go outside and take a cigarette break because I'm in there on the stage like, oh, I can't remember the song. And my brain is outside like, yeah, you got it. So what I started doing, I started developing a charting system. And in my charting system, it wasn't complex. It's very, very simple. Literally using my numbers. One, okay, it's going to the four, and I may go one dot dot dot, counting the measures, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it goes 6, 2, 3. That's my system. But what I would also do is make notes of little rhythmic changes and things that would be happening throughout the songs, or maybe make a note. Okay, this feels like that song right
Hmm.
there in that section. If it's a special lick or something that happens in the song, I'd make a note of what that is, what that sounds like, what it starts on. Okay, that lick starts on the 6, it walks down like this, and it feels like that. Maybe I'll write the rhythm out of what that feels like. So I would make sure that I'm going through this song, combing through each part. I teach on my lesson. You say you follow me, so you probably heard me say this: 3 levels of listening. You have the one, just the meat and potatoes, in which most bass players, is how we learn songs. We learn the meat and potatoes. um the second level is how they're getting from point A to point B. Okay, we got the meat and potatoes, they're going from the 1 to the 4 to the 6, but how are they getting there? What are they
Hmm.
doing? What little special rhythm or whatever that they're using to get there? And then the level 3, the detail part of it, what's the fine details that they're doing? Okay, he's moving from the 1 to the 3, but he slid into the 3.
Hmm.
Most bass players never get to level 3 because they stop at level 2, and most professional players live at level 3 because they understand it's the fine detail that makes the difference in how the song feels. So hopefully that
Yeah, I
answered.
think that's, I mean, I think into a certain degree, like when I'm learning songs, I think I kind of a similar concept where for me, I guess the level one would be I'm listening to the whole song and kind of thinking of it arrangement wise and getting the
Yeah,
arrangement down. And then
absolutely.
level two for me would be more of, okay, what are all the parts of the verses and the choruses and everything, and what are the chord progressions? And then, like you said, the next level being three. I'll admit, occasionally some of the songs we do are pretty easy, and so I'll go right to level two, and I'm good.
Yeah,
I'm guilty of that sometimes, but I do try to go to level three as much as possible, especially when there's more going on with the bass line. Then you're like, okay, I really need to pay attention to what's going on here and picking up these details, because really that's where music lives, is in the nuances and the details and the all that stuff. That's what really makes it interesting, to me anyway.
yeah.
So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that.
Well, and I'll throw this in there. The part of the level 3, because this is some of the thing that I've gotten from especially older players. They want to superimpose, I want to do my thing. I want to express the song how I'm hearing it.
Hmm.
Well, the level 3 gives you context to me in terms of when these players are hired to play on this session, they're hiring the best of the best most of the time.
Hmm.
And so these guys have a good idea, or the producer has communicated to these guys, this is what it's going to take to make this song come alive. Or maybe they have already spent the time, they've already done all of the hard work. So
Yes.
you get all of the fine details that that person would have done. Say if a person is looking at, I wonder how Jermaine would have played this song. We'll pick up a recording that I played on, listen to what I've done in that song, and that gives you everything I would have done on that particular song. So now I have all of his ideas. But the thing about it, we all have our unique fingerprint. So even if
Hmm.
I take all of Jermaine's ideas, Brennan's not going to play Jermaine's ideas like Jermaine would. You might play the same notes, but you have your own feel naturally.
Hmm.
Just like the way we speak, we all have I have a Southern drawl. I can't get rid of it. It is what it is. But when I approach certain songs, I'm going to approach certain songs with all of that history that I have in music. And that's my net. So I don't have to find my sound because it's already there. I just have to refine my sound. And I refine it by that level 3 of listening when I listen to other people and hear what they done. And it's like, oh, okay, I wouldn't have thought of that way. But now I know how to approach it. So the level 3 gives you the details to refine your own sound.
And that, you're making some cool points because I think a lot of people stop at around level two because they think, oh, I just like you said, Brent's going to play the way Brent plays and Jermaine's going to play the way Jermaine plays. So a lot of people just say, oh, well, I'm Brent, so I'm not going to bother learning that. It's really more of an excuse to not spend the time with it and just play what I want to play. But
Yeah,
you're saying the guy who recorded that spent all that time learning the part, working together with the band, and really getting it so that it works. They're creating the actual song. Why
absolutely.
not learn from that and learn as much as that as possible, even if you're going to change it a little bit and do your own thing with it, because you're going to learn from that and be able to pick up new stuff and then reinterpret it in your own way too. And so you're just going to continue to grow as a player that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's see here. I've got so many questions. So, let's see. So, what would be like some exercises and warm ups? Like for me, I like to try and warm up before I play. I know a lot of people just like jump right in and they don't do that. I know you've posted a lot of cool exercises for warming up and stuff like that. Is there anything that you kind of recommend for, say, I'm a church bass player and I show up for sound check and things that you recommend they do before they get started?
Yeah, you want to get the fingers moving. Just get the juices running through the hands, so to speak. Because that when I was, strictly a bass player week after week, and we played high, intense songs, and like your hands got to be warmed up. So different things that I would do, just different chromatic exercises at different speeds. And it's like I'm not being really technical. I might be sitting in a conversation and just I'm sitting there, with the bass, and I'm just sitting there, Yeah, I was thinking about that too, and so
Hmm.
and I'm just moving the fingers. So as much, and this might sound counterproductive, but as much of your brain as you can take out of it when you're warming up, and just get the fingers moving.
Hmm.
Just get the finger, like even if it's just,
Yeah.
don't put so much effort. In my opinion, this is my opinion. If you're just trying to warm up your hands, just for regular playing, just get the fingers moving. Get them moving. Don't move slow. Move, get it up to speed, moving fast. And if that's playing scale,
Yeah. Arpeggios work well for
yeah,
me.
yeah, arpeggios,
Yeah.
any of that's intervals, anything that you can do to get the fingers moving, because you just want to get the blood flowing through the hands. Because depending on your service and the type of stuff that you play, you want to be able to have that endurance to last, especially in black church.
Hmm.
You need endurance for longevity, because God forbid a shout or something break out and you got to play for a while. You need to have that longevity there.
Yeah,
So
I
just
think
get
I'm
the
up to like 150 on the metronome for a couple of minutes, and then I'm like, I'm done.
yeah. And so yeah, like I say, if there's a high moment in church, depending on your church, you might be there for a minute. So you
Hmm.
need to be able to play and not get fatigued. And so I think just getting the blood flowing through the hands, something that I often have done early on. I'm 42 now, but I don't do it as much these days. I should do it more these days. But I stretch my hands.
Hmm.
I stretch my fingers. I do that little stretches just to make sure I'm stretching
Hmm.
my fingers, little
Okay.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
I got big hands, but little stuff like that, shaking your hands, stretching your wrists,
Hmm.
all that kind of stuff. It makes a difference in being able to stretch everything out, and make sure that your joints and stuff, back and forth, because these things can tighten up, and you want to make sure um, that you're stretching all of these things and keeping your limbs and stuff really free, especially the older we get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And playing relax is really, it's something that's hard to do sometimes when you get really excited on stage, but that's definitely, especially the faster you have to play, the more relaxed you really need to be. And
Yeah.
I think that's something that a lot of people overlook when trying to get faster as a bass player.
Yeah.
They kind of get more into it, and you gotta be relaxed.
Yeah. And lighten up on your touch.
Yeah,
Lighten up on
yeah,
your touch a little bit, because that digging in too hard, that can that can put a lot of tension and add a lot of tension and drop your shoulders. That
Hmm.
I notice a lot of players play very tense. It's just like you said, breathe and drop your shoulders a bit, relax and enjoy it.
Yeah.
I There was a group. We have a group at our church that are getting ready to do this talent event for the church. It's like I guess the denomination or whatever, they have this talent thing that they the competition that they do. And one of the things I told these incredible youth who've been working really, really hard, I had to ask them, I said, do you even enjoy what you're doing? And it was like a few of them were like, kind of. I said, well, you're working really, really hard. The worst thing you want to do is put in all of this hard work and at the end of it, not have enjoyed any of it.
Yeah.
So actually, I would tell bass players and musicians in general, take a minute to stop and smell the roses, look around, enjoy like this moment that we get to be on stage. And I know this part wasn't part of your question, but this moment that we get to be here together in this moment. I think sometimes we as musicians and worship leaders and all, we're so busy trying to lead other people somewhere that we forget to be part of the moment with them. We forget to enjoy it. So, just try to enjoy it.
Yeah. And that was actually a question I was going to ask you is, how do you balance sometimes, playing, being really focused on playing the right notes and doing, getting the arrangement right and everything else, but also being present in the music. Um, so yeah, I'm glad that you hit on that. So you would just say just being relaxed and being aware of what's going on, listening to other people. Anything else you kind of add to that?
Yeah. Those things, but more importantly, and I've learned this later in my life, it starts at home.
Hmm.
It starts in your private time with God at home. If you're going to be a Christian, I mean, this is the worship podcast.
Yeah.
So if you're going to do this thing and you say you're doing it for God, then your worship shouldn't start once you hit the stage. Like who you say you are, it shouldn't start now that you're on the stage and there's lights and cameras going and a lot of people and everybody else is lifting their hands. Can you do that in private by yourself
Mhm.
with the song while you're learning it? You know, and I think that's something that I feel like a lot of us as worshipers, and I say that as team leaders, as musicians, and whatever, we don't. A lot of us, I believe, don't spend a lot of time with really developing our own personal relationship with our instrument, giving this back to God. When we think about David, uh, David was spending time, I'm pretty sure, tending the sheep because he wouldn't spending time with his instrument as he was tending the sheep because you don't go before a king and you're able to play spirits away and you just started doing that when you got to the king's palace. That's
Right.
something you were learning to do in private when nobody else was watching. I believe, and the Bible doesn't necessarily say this, but I believe that in those moments that David was tending the sheep and he's practicing on his, we're going to call it a guitar for the sake of argument, when David was practicing, that instrument or just playing that instrument, he's singing and playing these songs to God in his private time. So now in private, there's a connection with God, and when you have that connection consistently in private, it can't help but show up publicly when you're corporately together and we're all on one accord trying to praise our king, it
Hmm.
can't help but show up. But when you don't have that private time, now when you get in public, you're trying to manufacture something. And
Hmm.
so now when you're playing, yes, all your focus is going on right notes because maybe that speaks to a lack of preparation. And then not to say that you didn't, I want to be clear with this, not to say that you didn't practice in private, not to say that you didn't really work on the song hard in private, but did you work on adding God in that
Right.
equation when you were learning the song in private?
Yeah. The
And I think
purpose of the song.
there you go. And
Yeah.
so I think sometimes as musicians, we miss that part, bringing God into, like, we don't wait to Sunday to bring God into the equation. God wants to be in every detail of our lives. The Bible speaks, I want to say it might be in Psalms 34, that God delights in the details of our lives. So that means even when I'm learning the song and nobody's there, I'm struggling trying to get this riff. What is the conversation that I'm having with myself? because we have to be you know, mindful. I heard this person say, he said, you have to be mindful of when you say I am, be careful of what you attach to that, because I am is the name of God as well.
Hmm.
So when we say I am an idiot because I played this wrong, no, you're calling the God in you that he's giving you, the part of himself that he's put, you're calling that an idiot. No, what's the inner, and I know this is for a deeper conversation, but what's the bigger thing that we should be saying to ourselves when we're going through this? God, I bless you. I thank you for this opportunity that I get. I thank you that my hands are working. And as I learn these songs, I thank you that you're going to allow me to share these songs corporately on the stage with everybody. So the conversation that you have with yourself in private, when you show up on the stage in public, you come to the stage with gratitude rather than anxiety about playing stuff wrong. If I
Hmm.
miss some notes, I'm not coming to mess up, but if I miss some notes, it's okay. But the biggest thing, will God get the glory once it's all said and done?
Yeah.
And coming to the stage with that perspective, even in my preparation time, um, doing all of that and making sure that I'm giving God the glory and everything. Like I'm in my studio right now and I have a set of drums over there. Rarely do I ever get to play the drums, but I'll come out here and I think I can do it because there's no pressure from nobody expects me to be a drummer. So I can kind of get away with a lot. So I'll come out here often and I put headphones on when I do get the chance to come in the studio and I play music and I'll just play the drums. And there's plenty of times I went into worship just playing the drums.
Hmm.
Nobody's here. And I'm over there. I'm a lot of times, and I encourage you all to do this. A lot of times I'm imagining myself just playing before God. I'm giving you everything I got. Hopefully you're receiving something from this
Hmm.
because it's coming from the heart. And I
Yeah.
think once we make it a part of practice, there was plenty of times when I sat in the studio here at this base and I'm just worshiping. There's no gig, nothing coming up. I'm just playing and I'm just worshiping and I'm just crying. I'm bawling in here and I'm just playing. There's been people to walk it, like my wife and my kids might walk in on me and they see me in here just snot running everywhere, but it was private worship.
Hmm.
And it's those times that I can get before God in his presence and just enjoy being on this instrument in the presence of God. And I think if we can, as musicians, get back to being in the presence of God in what we're doing, then the enjoying it when we get out there in front of everybody else, that's second nature.
Yeah.
So sorry for the long answer.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah. I mean, that's what I came to Christ about 12, 13 years ago,
Yeah.
and got plugged in pretty quickly in my church worship team at that point in time. So I definitely know that feeling of, I'm a very logical based person. And
Okay.
so, and I like to have, it came, for me, it was really weird because I learned classical music as a kid and stuff like that. So I'm used to like practicing prepared and you don't get on stage until you have it perfect. And
Mm-hmm.
then get on the worship team and it's like, well, who knows what we'll be playing this week. And you get up in there and you don't know what you're doing. And it's just like,
Culture shock.
yeah. And so for me, I would get like really frustrated in the fact that this wasn't going as planned or as how I thought it should go. And so there'd be times I'd get frustrated. And definitely over the years, I've kind of learned how that it's not about me and it's not about how I was how I learned music and how music should be done. And so, yeah, I definitely think that that's a good thing that you mentioned because I've kind of had to work on that a lot over the years and making sure that I'm like, it doesn't matter. It's just, are we glorifying God and, that people are, we're leading them to worship.
Yeah.
And, over time, I'd realize, oh, I'm like getting really frustrated. But then all these people are coming up, oh, that was so great. I had this wonderful experience and da 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 da. And you're like, okay, maybe I need to just stop complaining so much in my spirit and be thankful in my spirit.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that's something that a lot of musicians do struggle with,
Mm.
especially if they come from different backgrounds like I do. And so, yeah, I'm glad that you do mention that, and that it reminds us that we need to stay focused on what's important, the purpose
Yeah.
of it, and not the perfection of it.
Yeah. And trust me, you're coming from a perfectionist right here that I beat myself up. All of these things I'm saying, I learned later
Hmm.
because I am still a perfectionist, but I had to learn how to get out of my own head because I would be bummed out if I played something wrong, and I just in my mind I'd just crash and burn. I couldn't get over it, and I'd be stuck there for the remainder of the service. And I'd even as an adult, I'd be at the church just bummed out because everything I felt like it all just went downhill, and
Hmm.
which it wasn't really that bad, but just in my mind, much like what you were saying, the weight and the emphasis and what it all boiled down to, I was being very self-centered. And when I had to really deal with myself, um, it's like, no, it's all about you.
Hmm.
How is God being glorified? And it's all about how well you played, how well you did this, how good your bass sound. All of the things that were self-centered around you, even if somebody did you wrong, even if it was a legitimate thing, how much of God was in that? So I had to ask myself those tough questions as a maturing believer, as
Yeah.
somebody, you know, who is a teacher. That's the biggest lesson. If we're saying we're holding this bloodstained banner up about Christ, but everything revolves around you, then we got to really question the sign we're holding up, because we have the sign we're holding up, but we got this big thumb pointing. The musicians I was around, we used to have this joke that we did. It's called false humility, where somebody gives you a compliment and you're pointing up to God. But the joke that we would do is like, I'll turn this way where you can see it, where it'd be like, it's like you're pointing to God, but the thumb is
Yeah.
pointing back at you. It's like you're giving credit to him, but you're also like you're receiving the glory for yourself. So it was a joke,
Yeah.
but that's a lot of what's going on, I think, in Christendom, so to speak, if I can use that word, and just gospel worship, all of the whole nine yard, where we're saying it's for the glory of God, but it's really all about us. So I'll get off of that.
Yeah. Well, I'll shift gears a little then, because
Okay.
I do want to ask you some gear questions.
Okay.
Actually, two questions, see if we can fit them in here. On your videos, I've seen you play at least about four or five different basses, and some of
Okay.
them are pretty cool. It looks like one's a Warrior, is that correct?
Yeah. A
And
warrior
then,
Isabella. Uh-huh.
yeah, and then you've got a four-string Jag, Fender Jazz, which you just had picked up there, and another one has the S on the headstock, I believe.
Yeah, that's my six string Serene.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a built by Scott Serene bases. That's my latest. I guess that would be my latest custom bass that I play. And so yeah, those what's your questions, by the way?
Oh yeah, I was just curious the different bases that you use and kind of which one you prefer, or if you've got certain ones for certain songs, or depending on the like for me for the lineup, I'm always looking at the lineup of the songs we're doing on Sunday, and then trying to like pick the bass that I think is going to be the best match for it, or anything kind of like that you do, or you just have one that's kind of a go-to bass, or
Ideally, when I was doing a lot of gigs, because I'm, believe it or not, I'm playing keyboards now at the church that I'm worship pastor at. But the I would oftentimes like to play just a really one versatile bass.
hmm.
I Up until recently, I did whole video, but not been a Fender guy. I was never really a Fender
Hmm.
guy. I did play a Fender for many years. Now I've been playing this bass here. It looks like my battery is about to die on my camera.
Oh,
Uh, Let me change that. I apologize. Give me a
no problem.
second. Yeah, so I played the Fender for many years, but I switched over to a Warwick thumb bass. I was
Oh,
playing that
okay.
for years. I was still trying to figure out my sound, but I played that Warwick thumb bass. But my Warrior Isabella was my go-to for many years. It was a really versatile
Hmm.
bass for me, and I know how to just dial in certain tones. So personally, I choose a bass that I'm able to just dial in multiple tones and just get that sound that I'm looking for. Might not be the look on the stage of the Fender, the classic Fender sound, but I know how to get the tone
Yeah.
personally. So oftentimes I'll bring maybe one or two basses And usually, if I'm playing out, it's going to be either the Isabella or my Serene nowadays, where and I'll just dial in whatever tones depending on the song for those
Yeah.
two basses because I like the freedom of having more than 21, 22 frets. I like the freedom.
Yeah.
I like to explore. I'm not busy, depending on the genre of music. I am control. I know in some settings you come in with a six string bass and everybody's like, oh Lord, here we go. I'm not that guy. I know how to stay in the pocket and how to not veer off too much. And if I feel that six string may give off that um idea, then I might bring something depending on the situation I'm walking into that doesn't give everybody that tense feeling like he's finna go solo the whole time.
Hmm.
I might play a little simple five string or something like that. But usually it's a five string bass for sure because I like access to that low B. And most of the time it's probably the Warrior Isabella or it might be a Fender Jazz or something like that,
Yeah,
typically.
cool. And you got a lot of backing tracks that you use on your videos. I played along to quite a few of them.
Okay.
I know I think on some of them, I think you reference a drummer, but is that where you're recording all the other instruments on it, or are you using other people for that?
Majority of the time, especially the stuff that's on YouTube, majority of the time I've recorded most of the instruments. I
That's
think
cool.
the hymns that you mentioned, the hymns that's on my website, I want to say majority of that stuff I played all of it. I think I hired a drummer for um yeah, I think I hired a drummer, but majority of that stuff I played it. It might have been one other keyboard player. But the other packs that's on my site, I usually hire musicians. But the stuff that's on YouTube, that's probably me most of the time playing that stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and again, to bring up your website, jermaine.morgan.net, not .com, .net.
Yeah.
So say if somebody was wanting to do some more studying with you, and again, assuming that they're kind of new to gospel, where would you point them to on your website as a place to start to get involved in gospel music?
I would probably point them to the contemporary gospel bass jam.
Okay.
I have an instructional and I have the pack for the people who like, I don't really need you to teach me how to play this. I can play it. I just want to jam to the tracks. I had that separately that they can get just the jam pack, but the instructional where I literally go down through it and teach how to play each song and the ideas and so forth and so on, the licks and stuff that I played in the song. Just basically teaching people how to approach the song. It's not long and drawn out. Each song, I think the lesson is less than 20 minutes, where I teach each song and I break it down 15 to 20 minutes per song. I think it's 6 songs, and it's just various styles of contemporary gospel music. If they're just if you're coming in cold to gospel, I think that's a good place to start because it feels like some things that we've heard, like some Fred Hammond stuff, some Israel stuff, and some other artists things that we've heard that feels a little bit more contemporary gospel. And so I would probably tell a person to start there.
Okay, cool, cool. All right. Well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. Anything else you want to share with us, or any parting words, or anything you want to leave with my audience to, whether it's, advice to, people starting out or anything like that?
Yeah. Don't forget that you're playing music. I think it's a quote I stole from Victor Wooten. We play music. We're not working. I think sometimes the better we get, the more we lose that youthful idea of just enjoying the
Yeah.
instrument. You know, enjoy it the whole. If you can, like I give when I teach, I give my students things to work on. But one of the things I try to reiterate is try to enjoy. Find something that you like and just jam out and implement those ideas in just the stuff that you're working out to. Let's say if you've been working all week on the modes or working all day on the modes, find a jam or a song or something like that and implement what you've been learning into it
Hmm.
because most of the time you're going to always go back to what you naturally know, and it's going to always go back to your go-to things. So if you don't work the new thing into your go-to stuff, you're going to always be waiting on this great occasion to, I'm going to try the new lick this week. It's like, no, just start working it into what you're already playing. Bite size chunks of what you just learned, work it in stuff that you're already playing, and just really enjoy the instrument, explore the different sounds before going out and buying a new bass. Explore all the different tonalities of the current instrument that you have. Explore the finger positionings, explore the
Hmm.
different settings, and see, oh man, I haven't tried this tone out before. Like explore, learn your instrument. I would say slow down on buying gear and learn
Yeah.
the gear that you have.
Yes.
Like really learn it. Like learn, and I don't mean be overly technical. And I know there's some people that's really technical, and there's nothing wrong with that. But like learn how to make music. Be unconventional. Think outside of the box
Hmm.
with your instrument. And last but not least, don't forget who you're doing it for.
Yeah.
I think that's a lost art. We tend to forget, you know, because we're trying to perfect it, and we, like even I was telling my kids, not my kids, but the youth that are preparing for this competition, always do it for an audience of one. That's my little slogan that I have. Play for one. Colossians 3:23. Basically, whatever you do, do it to the glory of God. Whatever you're doing, whether you're playing and you're posting something to YouTube, or you're playing and you finally got called for that recording that you was hoping to do and got your first recording session, whatever you do, don't worry so much about trying to please the people. Concern yourself with trying to please God, and that it's coming directly from the heart, that you're giving every single ounce of everything that he's put into you. You're giving it back to him with a sense of gratitude for the fact that we get to do this, man. We get to play this music. It's no better feeling sometimes, in terms of the horizontal. I talk about vertical and horizontal.
Hmm.
The horizontal, how we reach from person to person, and you're looking out there in the audience and you're giving God everything you got, and you're seeing somebody with tears in their eyes and their hands are up. That's a great feeling. It's not about you, but you get to play a role in somebody's connection with
Yeah.
our Father.
Yeah.
You get to play a role in that. And so
Yeah.
taking that serious and really embracing that moment, enjoying that moment with full gratitude. God, thank you that you allowed me to do this. Thank you that I get, thank you that my hands are working. So many people, that I know who've been in accidents or who've had strokes, or phenomenal
Hmm.
musicians who can't play anymore.
Hmm.
And they were great, but they can't do it anymore. And so each day that you get up and put your hands on this instrument, put your finger on a note, put your right hand over here, left hand over here, and make sounds and it's
Hmm.
music. Enjoy it. The fact that you can actually hear it, what you just played,
Yes.
the gratitude of like, man, I get to do this. I get to, and so I think when we can come from that standpoint and take so much pressure off trying to perfect everything, trying to do this, trying to do that, and have more gratitude behind what we're doing, then we're going to have a greater time in our lives enjoying this gift that we've been given.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, hey, Jermaine, thanks so much for joining us, and really appreciate it. And any other than your website, your YouTube channel, anywhere else we need to send people to?
That's pretty much it, man. I'm
Okay.
pretty straightforward. If you want to follow me, social media, I'm J Morgan Bass on, what is it, X now.
Thanks. Yeah.
I barely post there. Instagram is J
Yeah.
Morgan Bass. And fun fact, I also have a trucking company. I drive.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I bought a
Okay.
truck about a year ago. I bought an 18 wheeler. So
Wow.
I started an Instagram page, just kind of document my journey. J Trucking, JEY Trucking LLC. So that's basically my channel that I'm posting stuff about my truck, and that's
Uh,
another passion of mine. I didn't mention this. I don't think I have. I don't think I have. Let me see if I have one over here.
okay.
I don't think I have one over here. I don't want to walk away from the camera too far and go pick one. There's one over there, but I don't want to go get it. But I wrote a book, 10 Ways to Success, The Working Musician. And in that book, I mentioned this because I talked about the trucking thing. In that book, at the time that I wrote it, I think it's chapter 11, I talked about don't throw away your skills. I grew up, and I know we're over time. I grew up around a lot of truck drivers, and I've always loved trucks. Like it's just I've always loved it. Country boy. My dad drove, my mom drove, and uncles. And so anyway, I always loved that. But I pursued a professional music career, thanks be to God, and had a successful one, have a successful one. But I also still love trucks.
Wow.
And so I was able to do this, and I think what I've been seeing in sharing this is so many other musicians that have these other skills that don't look glamorous on the ground. You
Hmm.
know, it looks great to be playing before 30,000 people on Instagram, not so much doing something that's kind of blue collar.
Hmm.
So in doing this, I'm kind of embracing that other side of what I love and who I am and showing it to the world. And, this is also a gift from God, something that we get to do, having gratitude in all of it. So if you want to follow me there, you can follow me there as well. But don't throw away your skills, whatever it
Yeah.
is, figure out how it works in. I watched one of your other podcasts. I don't remember who it was, but they were talking about they had their own studio,
Hmm.
and it was talking about the opportunities and the lack of opportunities for musicians and bass players. And sometimes they don't make a lot of money and that kind of thing, but
Yeah.
that's one of those opportunities where if you have another set of skills, figure out how to work that into what you do as a musician as well, because that might have been something God had gave you that you wasn't supposed to be putting all your eggs in the basket of being a musician. But there's some other things you can do as well that will help to support your family in addition to the music. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Well, hey, I won't keep you any longer. Appreciate you so much, and God bless you. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, Brent, for having me, man. I
All
appreciate
right.
it.
You're welcome.